take this will also come. Coming with war news, Achilles and present day Wali or Wali. One is the deadliest sniper, and the economic sanctions and the tools of economic war. So today we deal and discuss with the economic tools of war and also the deadliest sniper who can kill 40 soldiers on a single reproductive day. That means a great loss to the other side. So come, let's see. Thank you, friends. One first reminder, and please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel Dil Se with Ratnam, bringing you news on war and its realities. Oh. So, in Russia's Ukraine invasion fans the flames of global inflation. Russia's Ukraine invasion fans the flames of global inflation. So the inflation is found around the city, around the globe, around everywhere. It's not for just one single place. So to highlight that, let us pin it here. Russia's Ukraine invasion fans the flames of global inflation. Everywhere the oil rates have increased, geopolitical situations is the answer. And the tools of economic warfare. Trade apart, sanctions now cover financial and energy sectors. Action against Russia. Denying Russia the ability to trade with other advanced countries has become a weapon. This time, it is not just the US but others have joined in. Putin faced sanctions before also, such as those that were imposed after his occupation of Crimea in 2014. This time it is a new ball game. So he knows about sanctions, but today he is seeing the sanction in a different angle. The US sanctions specific entities in the financial, energy and defense sector, not allowing Russia to access the SWIFT messaging system, which is Brussels-based cooperative in an EU initiative. It will affect the ability of Russians to take out loans, make payments, credit card sanctions, etc. Russian billionaires who love London are finding inhospitable. The British government stopped the sale of Chelsea, a football club owned by Russian Roman Abramovich. The owner has been banned from UK and his assets are frozen. Some companies have stopped exporting goods to Russia out of concern for the payments, hurting the Russians' ability to produce and consume goods. Russia holds about 40% of its reserves in overseas banks, which have been frozen affecting the country's ability to support its currency, which has fallen by 40%. Canada has closed its doors, its airspace to Aeroflot, the Russian airline. Canada has closed airspace to Aeroflot, the Russian airline, targeting the rich. By targeting the lifestyles of Russia's rich and well connected, a new front has been opened to increase discontent among the influential supporters of President Putin. Companies like McDonald's and Starbucks are shutting operations because of concerns about payments, fund transfers, and supplies, making the Russian middle classes uncomfortable. We are seeing the use of multiple economic tools as weapons in the war. This is experimental. As such, a widespread action has not been seen in the past. The economic actions are ostensibly meant to be a punishment and create domestic pressure to make Putin reverse his actions. It would certainly hurt the people, but in an autocratic society, the people have little influence on the government. Sanctions have failed to change regimes in Cuba and Iran. One consequence of this experiment would be a big push to create parallel systems for trade and payments and not be completely dependent on Western based ones. China has been building the yuan as reserve currency. Russia and China want to develop an alternative internet. Perhaps this economic war will also serve as a wet run for what can be effective in the next big conflict when China decides to invade Taiwan. So, people and all these present day economic sanctions have a great role to play even without a missile in their hands. Economic warfare has crushed any invading nation beyond words can say. Tools of economic warfare. The sanctions have become the tools of economic warfare. It is great. So the modern day wars are no longer only missiles. They are also tools of economic warfare. Economic warfare has the greatest effect on any war. An isolated Russia can't escape economic collapse. An isolated Russia can't escape an economic collapse. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is now entering the third week. With each passing day, Moscow's apparent but denied. It is apparent, but they are denying, as they should do, objective of regime change in Ukraine appears to be increasing threat of regime change in Russia itself. A great word has been spoken here which has to be highlighted. I will try to highlight it. Please understand. I will write it down also. I will write it down also for your specific importance. Putin wants to bring about a new regime in Ukraine, replacing Zelensky. But the newspaper reports a different style. They say, and I write down, Moscow's apparent but denied objective of regime change. Regime change. Putin's objective. Putin's objective is to change the regime in Ukraine, replace Zelensky. Okay, he is having such idea, and Ukraine appears to be increasing threat of regime change in Russia itself. And now it appears to be regime change in Russia itself. He wants to change the regime of Zelensky in Ukraine. Will he not end up seeing a regime change in Russia himself, and he himself getting into oblivion? Wonderfully written here. Please note down and have a very great thought on it. In addition to the possible reaction of President Vladimir Putin's inner circle to an intractable war, the primary reason for this is the crushing weight of Western sanctions. Intractable war, the primary reason for this is the crushing weight of Western sanctions. The Western sanctions are putting a crushing weight. An isolated Russia can't escape the economic collapse. Elvira Nabiullina, the president of Central Bank of Russia, she famously wears a brooch to signify the economic mood of the country. For example, she wore brooches that depicted a dove and hawk to signify easing and tightening during the pandemic. The Russian ruble plummeted from about 83 to $1 just before the invasion to 133 by day 17. So crushing weight is like this: 133 rubles for $1. Earlier it was 83 per $1. So 83, 93, 103, 113, 123, 133. See the difference. 50 rubles more have to be paid for one single dollar. The Russian ruble plummeted about 83 to $1 just before the invasion to 133 by day 17, a decline of nearly 40%, partly to defend the banks against a run on their deposits. Nabiullah hiked interest rates. She wore funerary black at the meeting, announced a hike in ruble interest rates from 9.5% to 20%. The huge hike may or may not stop the capital flight, but is very likely to sharply reduce the economic activity, particularly if it is credit related. Russia's economy, which was the second largest after the US at the height of Soviet power in 1950 and 60s, would have fallen to 22nd in the world with this ruble drop, and could fall further with a shrinking economic growth. Over 300 Western companies have already suspended operations in Russia. The long list includes household names like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, the Starbucks, technology companies such as Apple, Microsoft, and SAP, and auto companies like Volkswagen, Toyota, Cogent Communication, which is the second largest internet provider to Russia, have also announced the disconnection of its backbone into and out of the country. So, is this not sufficient to explain the crushed state of Russia? Economic dependency, economic welfare is most required for the family, for a country, for a globe. And now Zelensky bringing all his activities and turning all the stones. He enlisted the services of Wali, Afghanistan Wali, who got his name from Afghanistan. Wali, the deadliest sniper, who can kill 40 soldiers per day and bring havoc in the country. As on day, it is reported four top majors of Russia killed in action. So 4 top major generals were killed in action by Ukraine, the little country of the so mighty country, the Russia. So when a person is initiating the war, and a person inescapably answers a war threat, the loss is seen on both sides. The person who is initiating the war feels that he can go and kill and come back very safely. But when he thinks so, he gets killed himself. And the regime he wanted to change. He wanted to change the regime in Ukraine, and his own regime in Russia is likely to be changed. So things were any side they want, because the economic sanctions are crushing on the people. So economic sanctions are many, and we see here Biden bans Russian oil in retaliation for Ukraine invasion. Russian oil, that is the key item. Russia's oil no longer imported. Russia bombs force Ukraine into a wartime economy. So the Ukraine is also preparing itself into the forced economic structure. And I read from, we have moved into a war economy, said Timofey Milanov, an advisor to Mr. Zelensky's administration and a former economic minister. Now plants that made sweaters are making weapons. Plants that made sweaters are making weapons. Gathered management for an urgent conference call, and a decision was made to cease operations at Kowalska 13 factories and at various building sites. But instead of completely closing the shop, the company quickly redirected its effort to helping the military. It handed over its entire fleet of 600 vehicles, including concrete mixers, dump trucks, and excavators, to the Ukrainian army. Some of its dump trucks have been converted into anti-aircraft missile systems. So, see, even the civilians are taking guns and taking positions. All the companies, 600 tracks and trucks and dozers and things have been converted as missile tanks. Converted. And the staff has been quickly redirected itself efforts for helping the military. Kowalska also gave the military over 2 tons of TNT and the other explosives which it normally uses to blast rock in the granite quarries. So the TNT, which was used for their company's use, is now directed to aid in the Ukrainian war for saving their country. That is the patriotism shown by their people, and that is how Zelensky has entered into their minds and spirits to help the country. Some 40 workers go to work at several factories, their days punctuated by air raid sirens. Communication agency ISD group decided to focus on another front of the war, Russian disinformation. With Moscow cranking up its propaganda machine and muzzling independent coverage of the war at home, ISD founder and managing partner Viktor Shukorba said he wanted to show Russians the reality on the ground. Blown up columns of military equipment, the prisoners, the corpses. So, the media is showing the corpses of Russians to Russian people. See how much they are losing. Where the Russia state-aided media is not showing the devastation created on their land. But these people now are showing Russians the devastation that has been done on their land because of the initiation of the war of Putin. There is certainly reason to be worried about inflation as Russia's invasion compounds the pressures ignited by the pandemic. The cost of food, fuel, and metals has soared since the war began, with gasoline alone at a record, while prices for many services were already higher. So, Russia force Ukraine into a wartime economy, and the media is doing its work. The companies have directed all its forces and TNT exploding material into for war usage. They are putting in their full effort, final effort to save their country. And the objective of regime change, Putin's objective, appears to be regime change in Russia itself. So the reverse is also possible. See how a man dreams of himself, things can go differently also. That we must be very careful when initiating any undesirable act on others. So, many people have also quoted Anand Mahindra, the Tech Mahindra. I have lived through 2 wars during my childhood, 65 war and 71 war. And I remember how spine-chilling it was when air raid sirens went off in Mumbai. The world doesn't seem to have learned any lessons. So Anand Mahindra quotes like this: "The horror of a war on a common man is unbelievable and unexplainable." So another quote of Anand Mahindra, Chairman Mahindra Group: "The world is effectively at war. The physical battle may be won. The physical battle may be in one country, but political, economic, cyber, social media, and commodity resource battle lines have been drawn, and are global. Welcome to World War in 21st century." The 21st century war has many facets. It speaks on political side, economic, cyber, social media, commodity resource. So it speaks on so many lines. So though the people live only to face death, the initiation of Russian war is condemned by one and all. It is only the objective of the war is to change the regime in Ukraine. The Putin's objective appears to be regime change in Russia itself. This is the final and important sum and substance of the war. If this comes true, If this comes true to any extent, maybe even to a half extent, that is up to 50% also, it will be a great shame to a country which initiates war. Achilles, the man who was born to kill. Achilles was born to kill others, but he was not born to get killed himself. And now the present day Wali, who is the sniper, deadliest sniper, a computer engineer, a system engineer, who has the ability to take 40 lives per single productive day, has taken the side of Ukraine. Already he has killed 6 soldiers of the Russia. So, still people are supporting Ukraine, who is the little David fighting on mighty Goliath. The Goliath is necessarily mighty and well armed and armed, but Goliath goes with a sling in his hand, and we know the story. So will it repeat itself? I ask the viewers to please go through my explanation. I am teaching you everything from the newspaper. New superpower contest has begun. This is another facet of the war. Russia and China want to bring about the new regime and bring down the power of dollar. Everybody supporting them with some kind of inner interest. War on Ukraine ends Europe's dream of Russia as a friend. So Russia is no longer a friend to the European nations. Russia is no longer a friend to European nations. Even the IMF president and IMF and World Bank are speaking against Russia. So what we should learn? Isolated Russia can't escape an economic collapse, and tools of economic warfare are now in full force. Tools of economic warfare are in full force, and they are not sleeping. They are working all the time to against Russia. The cost of insurance against a Russian government debt default has soared over 50%. Russian 5-year credit default swaps CDS rose to a record of 4,200 basis points last week, signifying a very high probability of default. While global bond holders of Russian government and corporate credit are likely to get into protracted negotiation over whether they will be paid in rubles or dollars. The simple fact is that a collapsing and isolated economy will likely to head towards default. Please highlight this, you please see. I read again, please note. Russian government and corporate credit are likely to get into protracted negotiation over whether they will be paid in rubles or US dollars. The simple fact is that a collapsing and isolated economy will likely head towards default. That's the friend. The Russian economy is collapsing, and papers are speaking about it. Get to know that. Till we meet in the next episode, this is Dilse with Ratnam signing off for today. Bye. Please subscribe my channel internationally.